Well, good evening. This is Hound Dog Steve coming to you on the 17th of December, and it is a cold and frosty evening up here in Ontario. We've just had a little cold snap around about -20 just to get us all ready for January and February. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about today is this little story right here. And this person right here is Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, and this chap on the other side is Bill Morneau, the Finance Minister. And I thought that was a very interesting photograph. If you just take a look at the expressions on those two faces there, it would be interesting to know what was going through their heads at the moment that that picture was snapped. Anyway, this is basically about the marijuana tax that they want to put on to the sales of marijuana for legalization come next July. And as a business person, I find it extremely interesting to watch how the government is handling this. And you know, it's really another good example of why the government should really be never let anywhere close to any kind of business. So, okay, they've decided to legalise for Canada Day of next year. There is a $1 per gram tax going to be placed on the sale of marijuana, and the provinces and the Fed are all fighting as to how to divvy this up. Now, they started off with 50-50, and they've wound up now with 75% of the tax going to the provinces and 25% of the tax going to the feds. Now they're talking potentially $1 billion in taxes coming out of the sale of marijuana, medical marijuana. That they've decided that the LCBO will handle the sales, but the LCBO are not going to handle the sales through the LCBO offices. Oh no, they're going to have separate stores to sell the medical marijuana. So now we have to buy new stores or rent new stores. The staff is unionized, so you'll be looking at $24, $25 an hour for all of your staff members, and $1 a gram tax. Now they're assuming around about $8 or $9 a gram for the marijuana. Okay, so $1 tax makes it around at $10 a gram, and hope that they can cover all of the costs. Now, it was really funny that they were rubbing their hands with glee, and they had already spent this money, oh, it's going to go on transportation and infrastructure and all of this kind of stuff, and yet they haven't really thought about the fact that in Toronto, I believe there are 110 quasi-legal marijuana stores that are having difficulty keeping up with supplying the need. Now, the province is looking at 110 stores province-wide. Okay, so this means that there is going to be a real shortage on the ground of stores. So people are going to have to travel distances unless you happen to live close to a store near you. And this is going to make it very difficult for people to access medical marijuana. So now what you have to remember, and this is, you know, any business that you get into, you have to look at your competition. Okay, and the competition is the black market, and the black market is well established. Everyone who is taking medical marijuana right now, and those who are using marijuana for recreational purposes right now, already have their lines of access worked out. Okay, they've got their dealer, and you're going to have to drop those prices way down to be able to compete, because you know, when you're bringing a new seller onto the street, you have to give people an incentive to switch from one to the other. And you know, saying that you're going to hold the price at what you think is the cost of marijuana on the street is not going to work. You have to undercut that market. You have to give people an incentive to go from their established connection to you. And if you're going to make that more awkward and not really much of a price difference, there's no incentive to change. And if people are satisfied, then they're going to continue doing what they're doing. Now, when we go back to Prohibition, when America tried to curtail the sales of alcohol. Okay, what they found, now we've been through Prohibition, we've read the history books, we saw what happened, and the American government even poisoned alcohol with ethanol, caused all kinds of blindness and deaths in an attempt to stamp out alcohol use. Anyway, basically the prognosis of the whole situation is that when you have two people involved in a deal that both want to see reach a happy conclusion, it's going to go through. They're not going to rat each other out. Everything is going to be kept quiet, and you can't break into that circle. And that's how these things work. Okay, so I think that the province is rubbing its hands just a little bit too quickly on all of these revenues that it thinks it's going to bring in. And another big issue, actually a couple of big issues. As I said, if you want to undercut the black market, that means that this has to be subsidized, and it's going to be subsidized with the taxpayer's dollar. So the government is going to get the revenue from the sale of marijuana on the tax, but yet they're going to force the taxpayer to subsidize the situation so that they can compete with the huge existing black market. Okay, and the second point is that there's been no talk, or very little talk, of the municipalities. Now the province, they will not be doing anything other than reaping the taxes and laying out the rules and the guidelines for the sale of medical marijuana and the grow-ops of medical marijuana in Ontario. Okay, the people who are going to be policing this, the people who are really going to be facing the expense of medical marijuana is the municipalities. And where are they going to get the money from? That means they're going to have to beg the province for funding to do this. And basically the province, certainly in our municipality, and I believe all over Ontario, has been transferring the cost of business onto the backs of the municipality. The cost of policing in City Quarter Lakes is so outrageous, it's unbelievable. It is a crippling cost to have the OPP and Lindsay Town Police in operation. So who is going to fund this if the province is already being cheap over many other things? A good example up here is we're quarry land up here. Okay, so there is lots of quarrying of limestone. We've run out of gravel. The pits in the Golden Horseshoe of Toronto are no longer producing, so they're bringing down all this quarried material, and the province essentially is refusing to help pay for the infrastructure, even though the province is the one who's using the vast bulk of the quarried material coming out and down to, say for example, the new highway, the 407. Okay, so if you can't get them to shell out a few dollars to fix up essential infrastructure, how on earth are you going to get them to shell out a few dollars to the municipalities to help them police, set up and regulate the sale of medical marijuana in this area and the use of recreational marijuana? This is absolutely ridiculous. I cannot imagine a bigger cock-up. Did they not talk to any business people? Did they not ask people who are running the stores right now what they should do, how they should be run, how were they doing it, and what the demand was? Oh no, they send the police out every so often trying to shut them down, and then another one pops up somewhere else, so it's another waste of police dollars because it's a moving target all the time. But surely you would ask people who are already in the business, wouldn't you think? This is the stunning thing about the government. It seems it lives in this bubble, this echo chamber. It comes up with these novel ideas, and of course you can see by the people who are getting into this, like ex-police chief Julian Fantino and Premier Ernie, or ex-Premier Ernie Eves, who were actively prosecuting people for possession of this drug. And now all of a sudden they're into it and they want to issue $1 million fines for people who don't have growing licenses and this kind of stuff. I mean, this really is a government monopoly now that's being set up in Ontario over the sale of medical marijuana. And quite often these people are the most vulnerable in our society. They've already suffered some kind of catastrophic illness or chronic illness, and that's why they're taking these drugs for pain management. And to put them to further hardship is just absolutely incredible. I mean, this has all the hallmarks of the OxyContin scandal writ in reverse. You know, here's a dangerous, dangerous drug that they handed out like candy. There was so little oversight and regulation with this drug, it led to a class action lawsuit which was finished up this year. So how can you not regulate a really dangerous drug like OxyContin? You leave all kinds of loopholes, and then you allow people to get addicted to this drug, and then your solution is just to cut the supply off. And now when we come to medical marijuana, you are bending yourself over backwards to overregulate, to tie everything up in knots, to pretty well make sure that this is going to be the bumpiest rollout ever of legalization of marijuana. And we still haven't got the kind of roadside testing. And I believe there are already several class action suits waiting to go, because you know what? If you can take morphine, if you can take OxyContin, Percocet, Percodan, methadone, and drive, how come you can't take marijuana for pain and drive? I can see that's going to be a big issue. I can see that's going to be a court case right there, because if you are going to allow people to drive whilst they're taking these heavy-duty Percocet and Percodan tablets, I mean, these are major, major painkillers. Okay, so if you're going to allow people to do that, what is the difference between that and medical marijuana? I just fail to see the connection here, that you can be so lax with one and so absolutely over-regimented with the other. Anyway, I think it's going to be a disaster. I think it's going to lead to way, way, way more problems than they are going to solve. And frankly, I wish they would just let it go. Maybe call Amsterdam Chief of Police. Been legal there for 40 years. They have 40 years of on-the-ground experience with what they did wrong, what they did right, what the outcomes were, and all this kind of stuff. Okay, so I'm really tired that we're spending more and more and more of our tax dollars reinventing the wheel. So what I'd like to ask the province and the feds to do is to get with the program, talk to the people who have already got experience in dealing with this kind of stuff, and get yourself a workable plan together, because every mistake you make is costing us, the taxpayer, literally thousands of dollars per mistake. Okay, so if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe below, and don't forget to click on that little bell so you get all of the updates, and we will be talking to you real soon. You take care now. Bye-bye.